1990s, our GDP per capita was roughly similar. Today, China's is 5 times more than India's. It is like by far technological leader when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to green technologies, when it comes to really high value added kinds of technologies. It's no longer this workshop of the world just making buttons and the spectacles and these kind of light manufacturing commodities. Those days have gone, and they very much see themselves as rule setters, norm setters, and they see India's geopolitical ambitions as being misplaced. I'm told time and again that India should settle its house in order, develop your economy first, actually lift up your people, and then start talking about these geopolitical issues. There's this, we now also, of course, have a lot of netizens, which you did not have 20 years ago. So on WeChat, and there's a huge number of sort of troll armies similar to what you have in India that are constantly putting India down as a trash-filled dystopia.
大家好，这里是嘎人四绝频道。刚才的精彩集锦已经把中印两国今天的差距几句话说得相当直白。当年两国人均经济水平大致相近，如今中国已经在经济规模、人工智慧、绿色科技和高附加值产业上全面拉开距离。曾经那个靠生产纽扣、眼镜等轻工业商品的世界工厂早已完成升级，开始参与制定规则，甚至影响国际规范。相比之下，印度一边还在讨论地缘政治野心，一边却被提醒先把自己的经济和国家治理做好。这样的评价听起来刺耳，却并不是凭空而来。接下来的正片，我们将跟随一位长期生活在北京的印度女性，看看她如何亲身感受中国社会的巨变，从胡同里的日常交流，到高铁、医疗、公共空间和新能源汽车，再到中国人眼中的印度，以及两国关系为何从印中兄弟一步步走向戒备。更值得追问的是，印度究竟错过了什么？中国又为何越来越不愿意把印度视为平等伙伴
？17 years later, when I've gone back in my second stint, 2025, August 2025, I would say that there's been a dramatic change in perceptions of India. From this kind of collegiate potential peer to a laggard to be either taught or put in their place. There is very much this sense that the India comparison no longer holds because there's nothing to compare. They are not at the same level. So benchmarking the two against each other is wishful thinking on the part of India and perhaps some Western countries who would like to use India as a way of containing China. In the early 1990s, our GDP per capita was roughly similar. Today, China's is 5 times more than India's. It is like by far technological leader when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to green technologies, when it comes to really high value added kinds of technologies. It's no longer this workshop of the world just making buttons and the spectacles and these kind of light manufacturing commodities. Those days have gone, and they very much see themselves as rule setters, norm setters, and they see India's geopolitical ambitions as being misplaced. I'm told time and again that India should settle its house in order, develop your economy first, actually lift up your people, and then start talking about these geopolitical issues. There's this, we now also, of course, have a lot of netizens, which you did not have 20 years ago. So on WeChat, and there's a huge number of sort of troll armies similar to what you have in India that are constantly putting India down as a trash-filled dystopia.
Are they pushed by the party?
I think that they're not pushed by the party, but they are not discouraged by the party. So,
does this come through in your day-to-day interaction with the Chinese people? Because remember when we visited you in Beijing more than 20 years ago, we went to the Great Wall, we went to the palace, all the historic sites, and I was always in a sari. And I was very taken aback at the welcoming smiles of the Chinese. Many of them would come up and ask in sign language, ask if they could touch my sari. Then they all wanted photographs with me. And they were very, very warm vibe that I got from them, which was a big surprise. So in your daily interactions now with the Chinese in the marketplace or in the metro or a crowded place, do you find a change in their attitude? But do you look visibly Indian? Do you wear a sari?
Yeah, so there are a few sort of elements to that question. I definitely think there's a change, but there's different reasons for that change. I think one of the main reasons is that China is just a much more cosmopolitan, richer country today that shows less excitement about the foreign and the exotic. So like 20, 25 years ago, often if they saw a foreigner, they would fall off their bicycle because they hadn't seen a foreign face. They would assault white people for photographs and all of that. Now they're at a level where that would be seen as tacky. It's a bit like, you know, they're there, they're not there. They are not like they have traveled the world. So it's no longer this kind of exotic factor. It's become more cosmopolitan. People are more middle class. So the idea of getting very excited by foreigners in general, I think, has reduced. And in fact, some foreigners don't like that. I know a lot of white people who like, oh, we used to be like seen as something very special, and today we are just seen as anybody. But that's also because China no longer sees them as something, you know, hugely exotic or better or different. So there's that aspect. However, that said, a sari would attract attention. It is a beautiful piece of fabric. It is very elegant, and people would often, they might sort of compliment you on if you're wearing a sari or not. There has been a huge revival in China in recent years of wearing traditional Chinese clothes because, and you know, after the Qing dynasty, they had completely adopted Western attire. But there's been this kind of civilizational discourse and pride in, you know, ancient Chinese culture in China, just as we are seeing some of that in India as well. And the result is that if you go to any monuments today in China, people deck up in what they call Hanfu, which is Han dynasty, Tang dynasty clothes that you see from television series really. And then they will spend their time in, but it's almost like cosplaying. Like they will wear it as a costume and take photographs. But there is a return of traditional clothing even for the Chinese. And if they were to see a sari, I think that they would, you know, still probably be appreciative of it. However, when they sort of see you as Indian, I no longer get so much about the we are the same ancient cultures. You know, like they used to put us together a lot, you know, developing countries, large populations, we have the same problems. I used to get a lot of that 20 years ago. Today, it's mostly like, oh, you're from India. Oh, yeah. Less said.
That is so sad. But you said that they become more cosmopolitan.
More cosmopolitan, more confident, and more open, more aware of the world.
Do you see a visible change in the standard of living, in the lifestyle? And is it, you see, we went as tourists, and that I told you was 20 years ago. I didn't see a single poor person. There was no
visible poverty.
No Jhuggi Jhompri cluster. Also, more recently, just before COVID, we went to Chongdung. What is it called?
Chengdu. Chongqing.
Okay. Say it again.
Chengdu or Chongqing? Which one?
We went to both.
Okay.
And while Mani was at the conference, I would roam around. I went to the museum. I went shopping. And everywhere, there was a lot of traffic. There were a lot of cars, broad roads. I didn't see a single small-sized car. They were all big or medium-sized. So that, I thought, was a great jump because in the 50s, they were all on bicycles. And now they're not even a Maruti 800-sized car visible in two big cities.
Yeah, so I mean, they're the world's leading nation in electric vehicles, and they have a huge number of different car brands that you might never have heard of, but they produce cars that look like the Batmobile. I'm talking about so advanced that you speak to them, the doors open, you get in, everything is automated and sort of equipped with AI. They're also at the forefront of driverless cars at the moment, so they're being experimented with quite widely. 60% of new cars on China's market are today EVs. And these are EVs that compare with Tesla on quality but are much cheaper. So, you know, it's actually kind of amazing. I do remember doing a story in 2005 on Chery, which was like a Chinese car manufacturer. And the question I was trying to address is, will China ever be able to make a good car? You know, I mean, and that question has been answered and more than. All the German car manufacturers in China at the moment are terrified. Essentially, their businesses are being decimated and they have no idea how to kind of deal with this, because China for a long time was their main market. It was not in Europe, but it was in China. And today they've almost completely been replaced by Chinese car manufacturers. But just going back to your question about visible poverty.
Yes.
Yes. So when back in 2000, so even in the 2000s, as an Indian, I was always looking for visible poverty, right? Because we see visible poverty when we look outside our window. And I kept sort of in Beijing saying, where is this? I eventually joined a bunch of journalists on an almost like what was like a poverty porn reporting trip, where we went to the poorest province in China, which is Ningxia province. It's on the border with Mongolia, and it has the lowest GDP and so on. And we went to visit a village which had essentially been under desertification for several years, with the result that almost all young people had left, and it was supposed to be one of the poorest villages in China, and just a few old people left over there. So I thought finally I'll see this poverty, because all this while I hadn't been seeing poverty in any Indian sense of the word at all. And we arrived at this village. It took us quite a long time to get there, and most of the Western journalists were very happy to finally see this poor place and were asking questions. But I was looking at this place, firstly outside the poorest place in China, there was a motorbike parked. You went inside and they had a DVD player, they had a fan, there were all these white goods. There was a fridge, chota wala fridge. And here in India, that would be middle class, with the possession of these white goods is like one of the ways in which we measure. And this is back in 2006. So, I think in India, we often have this narrative of, oh, don't believe what you see, it's only Beijing and Shanghai and Guangzhou. Yeah. I have for the last year been traveling to third and fourth tier cities because I plan to write a book about these. And most of them are connected by high-speed rail to begin with, which is just mind-blowing because the connectivity makes such a huge difference to how the economy functions. 96% of the Chinese population today has health insurance, including in rural areas. They have it's a kind of complex of different forms of health insurance, but every single person I've spoken to is covered, and public spaces have improved beyond recognition. The pollution that used to plague Beijing, skies are clear. There are places there which used to look like the Ganda Nala in Defense Colony, and now you have people swimming in them and doing water sports. So just the public spaces are unrecognizable, and this I've seen across the board, including in much smaller cities. You will have really, really good infrastructure, which leads to a very improved quality of life.
So they look down on us deservedly.
Yes. We I think, have failed our citizens. We have failed our citizens. We have failed to provide urban infrastructure. We have failed to provide sanitary conditions. We have failed to provide the conditions in which people can be healthy, from the air to the water to the medical system. We failed in, I feel, even creating a sense of people feeling like they are equal to each other as citizens of the country. Instead,
we have created a generation of cockroaches. That speaks for itself, huh, Mani?
It does indeed, but
这场对话真正值得我们回味的，并不只是印度人如何看中国，也不只是中国人如何评价印度，而是当两个拥有悠久文明、庞大人口和复杂历史的邻国站在彼此面前时，究竟该用什么样的眼光认识对方，更该用什么样的眼光重新认识自己。帕拉维在中国长期生活的经历为我们提供了一个很特别的观察窗口，他不是短暂停留的游客，也不是只在会议室里接触官员的外交人员，而是住进胡同，走进市场，乘坐地铁，和普通人聊天。正因为如此，他看到的中国不只是宏大的国家叙事，也包括街头生活、城市变化、社会情绪和人与人之间的细节。他所描述的中国形象变化，最核心的一点就是从曾经的模糊、亲切和带有浪漫色彩的印象，逐渐变成一种强烈的现实比较。过去，中国人想到印度，可能会想到佛教、宝莱坞电影、拉吉、卡普尔的歌，也会想到两个古老文明共同面对现代化的困惑。那时的中印关系虽然存在历史阴影和边界争议，但至少在许多人心中，两国仍然被视为可以并肩前行的亚洲伙伴。然而，时间改变了这种心理距离。中国城市的基础设施、制造业、绿色能源、人工智能、电动汽车和公共服务快速发展，许多曾经被认为只是西方优势的领域，如今已经成为中国自身的竞争力。中国人对外部世界不再只是新奇和仰望，他们变得更加自信，也更加习惯把自己视为规则的参与者，甚至是规则的制定者。与此同时，印度仍然面对城市卫生、空气和水环境、医疗保障、公共交通以及社会平等方面的现实压力。必须承认差距并不等于否定印度，更不等于接受任何民族对另一个民族的侮辱。恰恰相反，只有准确看见问题，才有可能真正解决问题。如果一个国家总是用过去的辉煌来回避今天的不足，用民主、文明和大国梦想来遮挡基础治理的漏洞，那么这些宏大词汇最终只会变成自我安慰。 发展从来不是一场口号比赛，而是看普通人能不能喝到干净的水，能不能在安全的城市里生活，能不能获得稳定的医疗、教育和工作机会。但这场对话同样提醒我们，不能把经济成就简单等同于一切都好。中国的发展带来了更高的生活水平、更完整的基础设施和更强的国家执行能力。可与此同时，言论空间、历史记忆、社会监督和个人自由也存在另一面的问题。一个国家可以在治理效率上取得成绩，也可以在权力约束和公共讨论上留下争议。真正成熟的观察不应该只盯着一张成绩单，也不应该只抓住一个缺点就把整个国家概括成单一答案。中国和印度都在用自己的方式回答一个共同问题，一个拥有巨大规模、复杂社会和漫长历史的国家。怎样走向现代化？中国更强调治理能力、长期规划和实际表现，印度更强调选举程序、民主身份与制度正当性。两种模式各有优势，也各自承担代价。最危险的事情是只看见自己的优点，却把对方的优点解释成威胁；只看见自己的困难，却把责任全部推给外部环境。尤其值得警惕的是网络空间里不断增长的民族主义情绪。当一个印度医生因为对方来自中国就产生不愿意就职的念头，当一个中国人面对印度朋友第一句话就是侮辱性的标签，问题就已经不再是国家之间的竞争，而是普通人之间的尊严被政治情绪吞没。边界争端可以谈判，战略分歧可以管理，经济利益可以重新安排，但一旦仇恨进入日常生活，进入语言和本能反应，修复关系就会变得更加困难。中印关系的症结最终仍然绕不开边界问题，也绕不开彼此对战略选择的猜疑。印度担心中国的实力和安全压力，中国则担心印度与西方合作的战略意图，双方都强调自己是在维护安全，却又把对方的安全行动理解为挑衅。这样的循环如果持续下去，任何一次边境摩擦都可能让多年积累的合作重新冻结。因此，真正的改善不可能只靠口号，也不可能只靠一次访问或一纸声明，而需要双方在边界、贸易、人员往来和舆论环境上持续建立可验证的信任。邻国之间不可能永远隔着大洋相望，危机来临时，最先受到影响的往往就是身边的国家和普通民众。中印两国有竞争，这是现实；有历史包袱，这也是现实。但有竞争并不意味着必须永远敌视，有分歧也不意味着不能在气候、公共卫生、能源、贸易和地区稳定等问题上寻找合作空间。这期内容给我们的启示也许可以归结为一句话：看清别人是为了看清自己，承认差距是为了改变差距，坚持立场是为了更有能力寻找和平，而不是为了把对方永远塑造成敌人。真正的文明自信不是听不得批评，也不是拒绝承认别人做得更好，而是有勇气面对事实，有能力修正错误，也有胸怀承认邻国的成就。未来的亚洲会不会出现更加成熟的中印关系？今天还没有确定答案，但可以确定的是，仇恨不会让任何一方更强，幻想也不会让任何一方进步。只有减少误判，控制情绪，尊重事实，推动务实对话，两国才有可能从相互比较走向相互借鉴，从彼此防范走向有限合作。欢迎大家在评论区说说，您怎么看待中印两国的发展差距、边界争议以及两国未来重新合作的可能性？也欢迎点赞订阅，观看更多精彩视频。